By analogy to what, Marshall? Did you say in the last recording what the analogy was to? Your hearers may get the analogy, but not realize how it applies to your previous recording. Well, I think it's something like you can't apparently analyze something for good because it's a forbidden topic. It's forbidden perhaps because it's not acceptable in your society and somehow to talk about it. You know, we don't talk about the toilet, do we? I mean, that's not it's not spiritual. I mean, but it is, and it's very necessary for our physical well-being. It doesn't mean to say I want to sit meditating in the toilet. It's not the right place. I accept that. Doesn't have the right connotation for me at all. I mean, you can receive inspiration anywhere, but I wouldn't pursue it particularly in the toilet. To the point. Childhood is not a continual bliss and joy. Not in general, I mean, really isn't. This state of unknowing, of incompetence, starts to bear upon you something chronic. You can't do, you can't keep up, you don't understand, you don't know why, you want and you can't have. It can be a lot of that, you know. I was saying, yes, terrible, isn't it? If only we could iron that out like the Buddha's story, make everything round him absolutely perfect. He'll be a perfect guy, like the Buddha. No, you missed the point. He had longings that were not met, a curiosity that drove him out of the palace. He stole out at night with his servant, in the story, live with the story for a minute, and saw the reality of the cities, squalor, suffering. Oh God, there must be an answer to this. He goes off into the wilderness, in effect, into the jungle. He finds solace in his few friends, fellow mendicants. I think that's what you call them, sadhus or whatever. But they're not enough. They don't have the answer. He realizes he's alone without the answer. He fasts until he's blue in the face, and that doesn't work. So he goes to the middle way, just sits under a tree, looks up in the tree. You look up into a tree, huge tree, and you look up into it. Suddenly the 3D effect just grabs you, and you see the majesty of this tree. It's like looking into the arms of heaven up there, spiraling upwards. Part of God's natural cathedral, you might feel. You just feel something like that. You got it. The middle way is the answer. I think that's actually how he found the middle way. I'm not sure, I'm not too up on the story. Enough to know that he found the key to overcome suffering. You don't pursue suffering and have more and more of it. You don't deal with it in, sort of cleaning out ways, really. Most of your suffering is worrying about the future and that may never happen, and regretting the past, which, you can't change. God can, but you can't. Most people don't believe in hindsight prayer, so they're not praying for God to change what's in the past, only the present to be better than the future. And it dawned on him, if I stop and control the mind, in some sense, and just focus on the present. Well, the present's not too bad for most people most of the time. Literally, I mean, they're not dying all their life. They're not typically in pain all their life. Oh, goodness, I hope not. Not many of them, anyway. And so forth. You know, for the average person, today is not particularly wonderful, but it's not particularly terrible. It's not extremely terrible, anyway. Few irritations, you know. Don't like my boss, and the wife's not nice to me, but you know, I've been living with it. It's not the end of the world. I'm enjoying this sandwich. The present is quite tolerable. So he cuts off the past and the future. Well, the religion goes a lot further. It cuts off life itself. It sort of persuades him that he doesn't even exist in the end. I got a feeling it got out of hand. But of course the Buddhist doesn't think so. I mean, the Buddhist quite honestly idolizes the Buddha. That's the reality of things. It simply elevated the Buddha to being God. I don't mean all Buddhists any more than all Christians believe in the God of war that thunders from the mountains. But some do. Clearly some do. Well, the Christian way is not the Buddhist way. The Christian way doesn't deny your personhood, doesn't deny the Buddhist religion's view of there being no God, doesn't accept the Christian view either. Truly Christian view doesn't accept the Christian view that there's judgment and damnation for especially those that are not up to the mark. It's not a very loving religion, I can tell you, mate. Not when it comes to it. Destroying everyone on the earth, and there's genocide in most people's books, but not God's, apparently. I don't think you've got the right view of God here. Your scripture's up the creek. You've got to clear out the rubbish. If you don't clear out the rubbish, you're going to be as miserable as sin as these dyed-in-the-wool churchgoers are. They're not all like that. I find a few saints in every church, really, but they can be a bit thin on the ground. I find saints everywhere, but they are thin on the ground. I find secular people are the saints. I find every religion under the sun, it seems, have saints in. My God is an awesome God. He allows everything for a very, very, very good reason. That is my belief and trust and hope, and I'm sticking to it. And so, because I believe also He's loving and good and wonderful, I say thank you in the face of evil, and I deal with it accordingly. If you like, I sacrifice it in the flames of my devotion to Him. And if our God does not rescue us from the fiery furnace, still we will not worship you. Well, our God doesn't require you to worship Him in the face of unbearable distress and duress. Just loving Him when you have space and time and can. That's just lovely by Him. I don't need my kids to be forever thinking of me, obsessed with me. I want them to just experience living and doing things they love doing. And when they come home to me and they love me too, well, it's all worthwhile from my point of view. Bless them. How much more with God, for goodness sake? Be reasonable. loves you. Doesn't want martyrs, doesn't need you to suffer. And from his point of view, you can stay at home if you really need to, and I'll homeschool you. But you want to go to school? Okay, love. I'll take you to school. Come on in, get in the car. Off we go. Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's off to school we go. Hi-ho, 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 hi-ho. And she doesn't let me sing. Would you believe it? My daughter doesn't let me sing. Oh, she blocks her ears. I can understand it's terrible singing, but she's rotten to me. Fancy treating your dad like this? And we do. Why do you treat your dad like this? He needs loving. Don't dismiss your God as not a person. You've made him so awe-inspiring and wonderful and immense and elite and remote. You've destroyed his personhood. He's a person like you, except 1,000,000 times more of everything. He's created you because he needed you. He has this burning desire for wonderful, perfect fellowship, an infinite amount of it. And he won't be happy if you're not part of it. Our God is a consuming fire, but in a lovely way. Just loves you and wants you to be as full a person as he is. Equal in a lovely way. Not in a competitive way, but in a true heavenly family, host of heaven way. Thank you, Dad. Love you. Thank you, Dad. The analogy then to my JP recording is that we do allow our children to suffer as little as possible, but enough to become wonderful adults. If they don't experience the cost of some mistakes, they won't realize the gravity of how important mistakes are. They make the contrast of what is good. And you get your bearings by that such contrast. This is bad, this is good. And I know what bad is to some very minor extent, enough to imagine what bad could be, and I'm not going down that road. You know, in this case, with my little girl, I mean, you know, if she's exhibiting behavior, anger, that is going to destroy her life. I mean, I know some Christians think that anger is valid, that, you know, there's self-righteous anger, but I mean, I take anger to be, you're out of control. Out of control can't be valid, only from the point of view of experiencing being out of control and knowing you don't like it. It's bad, it has bad consequences. Now, what you do when you give a punishment, as we used to call it, is you say, look, I want you to associate this behavior with bad consequences so that you don't like it. Because I want you to be repelled by this behavior. It's going to wreck your life if it becomes a habit with you. Now, I'm not there to crush the child. I'm there to just say, look, bad behavior, anger in this way gives you loneliness. You want loneliness? No, I hate it. Well, stop being angry then, love. You know, I mean, I can't risk leaving you alone until you calm down. That's not going to work. I mean, you might just hate me for it. Nobody's suggesting you do that. And perhaps even if you can take it, you stay with the anger if you think you're not extending the anger by being with him, the child. But you know, it's like listening to some people with their woes. Some people actually get it off their chest, others don't. They repeat it again and again in more and more detail, and it gets bigger and bigger rather than smaller and smaller. You got to draw a halt. You've got to say, look, at least within yourself, this is not blessing this person, me sitting here, having them rage against me, or in this case, you know, with a lady with her burdens going on forever. I must bring this to an end. Because she's just getting deeper and deeper into it by talking about it. And rage can be like that. You're better without the object of rage around for a little while, because there's not much point in raging against the person if he's not there. And the child's raging against you, the one that loves them, for goodness sake. So you might just step aside for a little while. You can come back again after a little while, not a long while, and try and make it not too little for the child, but certainly not too long, I agree. Because you love them, for goodness sake. But you do want to say, look, you can't rage at me, love. That just loses my company. Are you sure you want that? I don't think so. Well, in the end, they stop raging, even if you manage to stay with them and they rage on for a while and they're calmed down. And then you can talk to them. Possibly not immediately, A bit later on, when they are truly recovered, and explain it to them. Now and you can explain. I got a book, wonderful book on, you know, bringing up daughters I read, and I thought that's so right that you can explain to them then, how did you feel, love, when you were raging? Were you happy? Would you like to be in that again? No, it wasn't nice, Dad. Didn't like it. I was so upset. I don't want to be upset like that again. No. How can we avoid that, love? Do you see you can start to come alongside and love and care for and help? You can't do that when they're raging. They're not here. And in some sense, if you stay around, probably the rage will keep going, because you may well find that, I don't know, I don't think the rage can keep going if you, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are different situations. Babies crying for you, they need something, and Mum does all she can to find out what they need. Well, that's good. But you know, when they rage with anger at you, it's frustration, of course, something they're not getting that they want. They're not going to carry on raging if you're not there. And when they have calmed down and become reasonable again, then you can come to their rescue and try to set the stage so that that rage is less likely to happen in the future. That's all we're saying we're trying to do. There's no point in casting JP as being some evil intending psychiatrist or something. I mean, it's not fair, it's not valid. What do you want to say that for? Come on. Be reasonable. Like you, he's called to a profession. Because it's a vocation. Wants to rescue people and help people, just like you. You have to give him the benefit of the doubt, or he'll be very destructive. Please hear me. Bless you. Bless you, mate. Thank you, Dad.